There are a lot of big names on the trade block this trade deadline. We got Juan Soto, Willson Contreras, Shohei Ohtani possibly. Let's go over the top 20 trade candidates and decide whether or not they're going to be traded, and if they are, where I think they're going to land. My top 20 trade candidate predictions are coming up right after this. What is up, YouTube? It is your boy NMR Sports here, coming back at you with another MLB video. And today we're going to be talking about the top 20 trade candidates and where I think they're going to land this season. Before we get into today's video, don't forget to leave a like on it if you enjoy the video and help it reach more baseball fans. In the comment section, let me know, who is your team going to trade, or who are they going to trade for this trade deadline, if they're going to make any moves. And don't forget to subscribe for more daily MLB content. Also, check out the link in my description. Thrive Fantasy is sponsoring this video. They're a really good daily sports betting app. You can bet on player props as well as enter their daily fantasy contest. If you deposit just $10 at the link below, you'll actually get $60 worth of free bets. They'll match your deposit, as well as giving you two $20 free contest entries. Check it out at the details in my description. And without further ado, let's get into the video and start talking about some of these trade candidates. All right, so this is an article by Joe Rivera with MLB Trade Rumors. I will link this article in the description so you can take a look at it if you'd like. Like I said, some of these players I don't think are going to get traded, so let's go through them real quick. You can see Juan Soto, obviously the clickbait thumbnail of this article. Let's start it off with Juan Soto on the Washington Nationals. Now, do I think Juan Soto is going to be moved this trade deadline? Absolutely not. I don't think that any team is going to go out and give the Nationals what they want this trade deadline. I could see him getting moved this offseason as well as maybe next trade deadline, but this season I don't really see it happening. If it does happen, however, I would love to see him on the Cardinals. I would love to see him on the Giants, and I do think the Mets are crazy enough to make it work. You know, Steve Cohen is very much win now mode, spend as much money as you can, screw all the prospects. I do know they have the top prospect in all of baseball at the catcher, but I don't think anybody's going to make a move this trade deadline. However, this offseason, look forward to a Juan Soto trade. Now, next up, we got Willson Contreras of the Chicago Cubs. Now, will Willson Contreras get traded? 100% without a doubt. He has to get traded. Come on, Cubs. The Cubs did the same thing last season with Rizzo and Bryant and Baez. They're going to do the same thing with Willson Contreras this season. So where will he land? It could literally be anywhere. I would love to see him on the Astros. I think that would be the perfect fit for him. I think the Yankees could trade for him, even though they have a good catcher there in Trevino. They could, the Mets could be crazy enough to trade for him. They could, you know, platoon him in that top prospect when he comes up. However, I do think AJ Preller and the San Diego Padres are going to land Willson Contreras at the trade deadline. I wouldn't even be surprised if I saw them make a move for Willson Contreras and Ian Happ in the same move. They've been trade partners in the past with the Yu Darvish trade, and AJ Preller is always aggressive at the trade deadline, so I would not be surprised if we see Willson Contreras end up in San Diego by next week. Next up, we got Andrew Benintendi of the Kansas City Royals, and I will be honest, I think he is the most overrated player of this trade deadline by far. I think whoever trades for him is going to be extremely disappointed. Andrew Benintendi, anybody who has no power upside, I'm always scared of a team trading for. Like, at least Joey Gallo had, you know, 40-50 home run upside, even though he sucked with the Yankees currently. Andrew Benintendi, if he reaches his floor is well below average. I would be very, very scared to trade for Andrew Benintendi. However, he has had a very good season this year. Obviously, he was on the All-Star team, so he has been very good in a Royals uniform. He has had the trouble with not being vaccinated, so any of these teams that are going to be playing the Blue Jays in a playoff run are probably going to be a little more scared for him. But currently, surprisingly enough, I actually have him going to the Tampa Bay Rays. Now, the Tampa Bay Rays are really good at getting guys like Andrew Benintendi and getting the absolute most out of them. So I think if Andrew Benintendi goes to the Rays, he will be a phenomenal performer. He will have a great rest of his year and probably be, you know, a postseason hero, hit 30 home runs in the postseason, because that's just what the Rays do. The Rays find a way to make guys like Andrew Benintendi look like MVP candidates. So I think he'd be a really good fit for the Rays. He would bolster that lineup. Even though, like I said, certain teams I really wouldn't like to see him on. I think he'd be a terrible fit on the Yankees, surprisingly. I think he'd be a terrible fit on the Mets, the Giants. I think he'd be a really good fit for the Tampa Bay Rays, though. Next up, we got Frankie Montas of the Oakland Athletics, and honestly, same thing goes for him as went for Willson Contreras. Pretty much any team is going to need starting pitching help, but the biggest need for any team in the starting pitching department is going to be the Boston Red Sox, and that's where I have Frankie Montas going. They've been very vocal in the past about not really caring about injury history. Obviously, he's had a couple injury issues even this season, but Frankie Montas, I think, could really move the needle for the Red Sox and get them into the postseason. Their starting pitching's been kind of a train wreck this year. They need a shutdown guy like Frankie Montas to go out, especially in a playoff series. Frankie Montas, Nate Eovaldi, and then I guess hopefully Michael Wacha would be back in a postseason. That'd be a really good 1-2-3 punch with how good their offense is. So I could see Frankie Montas going to the Red Sox, but pretty much any team could use him. The Yankees could use him. The Mets could use him. The Mariners could use him. However, I don't see an interdivision trade happening there. But overall, Frankie Montas, Boston Red Sox. Next up, we've got Josh Bell, and Josh Bell has one perfect fit. I'm not even going to mention any other teams, even though there's a lot of teams that could use him. The Houston Astros. It is a match made in heaven. It is the perfect chef's kiss. Couldn't have written it up any better. Josh Bell will be a Houston Astro. If he's anywhere else, I'm going to be very disappointed in the Astros. They need first base help. They could use a little bit more pop in that lineup. The lineup's already phenomenal, but he would just add a really nice layer of depth that I would like to see. So Josh Bell better be in a Houston Astros uniform come the trade deadline. Next up, we've got Bryan Reynolds. Now, Bryan Reynolds is a phenomenal baseball player. There's a lot of teams who could use him. I think he'd be a great fit with the Yankees. I feel like I keep mentioning the Yankees. However, I don't predict anybody to go there. It'll be coming up, a little teaser there. But Bryan Reynolds, the perfect fit for Bryan Reynolds, the San Francisco Giants. Oh, he'd be so good at the top of that order for the Giants. Just a really solid leadoff hitter, or anywhere in the top 3, honestly. So much room for extra base hits there for Bryan Reynolds. I think it'd be a perfect fit. Not really sure what the Giants would have to give up for him. They do have a fairly deep farm system, and they do have a couple of other pieces that they could trade for him. I think the Pirates would be very interested in a trade like that, and Bryan Reynolds just seems like a perfect fit. God, he'd be so good in that ballpark. I really want to see Bryan Reynolds on the Giants come August 2nd. All right, Yankees fans, I'll throw you a bone. Luis Castillo, the biggest starting pitching, probably outside of Juan Soto, which I don't think is going to be moved. Probably the biggest move of the trade deadline is going to be Luis Castillo, and I've got him going to the Bronx in the New York Yankees. They've been rumored to be in on him for over a year now. Actually one of my first videos, if you go way back, I made a Luis Castillo trade rumor video back like 2 years ago, one of my first uploads. Luis Castillo is a perfect fit for the Bronx. I think he would just be a phenomenal addition to that rotation. Garrett Cole, Luis Severino when he's healthy, Luis Castillo, Tyone's been pretty good this year, Nestor Cortez. Honestly, that'd be a three-headed monster, Cortez, Cole, and Luis Castillo in the postseason. That would be phenomenal. And honestly, I think that could get the Yankees over the hump and possibly put them over the Astros, even though the Astros have kind of been their daddy in the regular season. We'll see what happens in the postseason. Luis Castillo, welcome to the Bronx. You are a New York Yankee. Next up, we've got Ian Happ of the Chicago Cubs, and I said it in earlier, I alluded to it, but I also have him going to the San Diego Padres. I think they could make a big deal there with Willson Contreras and Ian Happ. That would honestly really solidify that lineup there. They already have a pretty good rotation, they already have a pretty good bullpen, but this would make their lineup one of the scariest in all of baseball. So Ian Happ and Willson Contreras to San Diego. However, Ian Happ would be a very good fit in San Francisco, like I've said. I think he'd be a fantastic fit in New York as well. Either of the New York teams, if I'm being honest. There's a lot of teams that could use Ian Happ. He's going to be one of the more underrated trade pieces of this trade deadline, and I think there's a 100% chance he gets moved. Next up, we've got Trey Mancini, and I have Trey Mancini going to one of the popular destinations, and that is the New York Mets. Now, he would be a really good fit in some other places. I would love to see him on the Milwaukee Brewers. However, I don't think the Brewers, they just don't like hitting for some reason, so I don't think the Brewers are going to make a move for him. So I see him going to the New York Mets. They definitely need some DH help over there in Queens, so we'll have to see what happens. I don't think the return would be that big on him. However, I do think the asking price could get a little higher when you have teams like the Brewers and the Mets, both competing for the same free agent. Those would be the two teams that I see him at. I don't really like any of the other options for him, but hopefully the Orioles move him. I know they're kind of in a contention right now. However, I don't think this is their year. I think they got to take a step back, get a little bit more to build around. They have one of the worst rotations in all of baseball, so maybe get some pieces back, maybe get some young starting pitching help, and then move Trey Mancini, re-sign him in the offseason. Next up, we've got Joey Gallo of the New York Yankees, and what better place to put him than involve him in a trade I already mentioned, send him to Cincinnati. Joey Gallo would be a great hitter in a extremely hitter-friendly ballpark over in Cincinnati. Another place I'd like to see him would be Colorado, but I don't really see a reason for Colorado to trade for a guy like Joey Gallo. So Cincinnati, I could see him being involved in a Luis Castillo trade. You know, Luis Castillo for a bunch of prospects, Oswaldo Peraza, something like that. A couple of the Yankees' top prospects, and then throw Joey Gallo in there just for fun. I think it'd be a pretty good fit for him. Joey Gallo, I could see him hitting absolute monster shots like Adam Dunn, well over the seats there in Cincinnati. Very hitter-friendly ballpark and a little bit more relaxed. I think the New York environment is just a little too stressful for Joey Gallo, something like that. But Cincinnati would be a great fit for Joey Gallo. Next up, we've got Sean Murphy. Now, Sean Murphy, a lot of people have suggested that he would be packaged in a deal with Frankie Montas, so in that case, he might be going to the Boston Red Sox. However, I have another team trading for him separately, and that would be the St. Louis Cardinals. Now, the Cardinals, obviously, they have Yadier Molina back there. He is an aging catcher who, you know, is well past his prime. He still can catch. He's a pretty decent defensive catcher, but his bat is just non-existent. I think Sean Murphy would be a great replacement for Yadier Molina, and it'd be nice to be behind Yadi, you know, get a little bit of that insight from a very old veteran catcher, and maybe help him be the catcher of the future there in St. Louis. Obviously, the A's aren't going to be contending, so I think the Cardinals have a lot of good pieces that the A's would want, and any of these teams that don't have a good farm system, I really can't see doing a big trade with the A's. So the Cardinals, I think, would be the perfect fit for Sean Murphy. Now, I am going to throw a bonus one on this list, and that is Noah Syndergaard, who I also think is going to go to the St. Louis Cardinals. I think they need rotation depth at the moment. Hopefully, they get Jack Flaherty back by the postseason, but I think Noah Syndergaard would be a great addition to that roster, and I think he could really help them make a postseason push and hopefully win the NL Central with them. Next up, we've got Dom Smith, and I really just don't see him having any value whatsoever, and I just don't see him getting traded. I'm not even going to throw a destination out there for him because I don't see him getting traded. It just doesn't make any sense for me, so I'm just not putting him out there. I'm sorry. Dom Smith, nowhere. Dom Smith to AAA, I don't know. Don't really see a spot for him. Throw him in Cincinnati with Joey Gallo. Why not? All right, another Cincinnati Reds starter, that is Tyler Maylie. And Tyler Maylie, I'll be honest, another guy who could end up literally anywhere, but a really good fit for him, I think, would also be with the Boston Red Sox. I would like the Red Sox to have a little bit of depth in that rotation. I think they need multiple starters if they do want to contend this year, so Montas and Maylie would be a very good addition to that rotation there in Boston. So you have, you know, hopefully Michael Wacha when he's healthy, Frankie Montas, Nate Eovaldi, Nick Pivetta, and then Tyler Maylie. That'd be a pretty solid rotation to get them to the postseason, and then Maylie out of the bullpen probably in the postseason would be fantastic for them as well. So I think Maylie would be a really good fit for the Boston Red Sox, and it wouldn't require too much of a trade package. They don't have the deepest farm system, so we would have to see what would happen there, but Tyler Maylie feels like a good fit for the Red Sox. Next up, we've got Jose Quintana of the Pittsburgh Pirates, one of the more surprising trade candidates. I honestly thought he was cooked with how bad he was with the Angels last season. The Giants traded for him, and he wasn't very good with them either. I think they signed him. I think we DFA'd them, and he signed him, something like that. But Jose Quintana, I think he'd be a really good fit for the Seattle Mariners. Now, the Mariners, their rotation is just not very deep right now. The top of it's okay. Robbie Ray's had some pretty good starts lately. He did have a blow-up start recently against the Astros. I know about that. Logan Gilbert's been pretty good for them at the top of that rotation. But outside of that, Marco Gonzalez has been a little bit rough this year. And they don't really have too much behind them. They do have some good young prospects in the minor leagues, but I think Jose Quintana will be a nice veteran starter to add to this team to help get them to the postseason, and then maybe pitch out of the bullpen in the postseason. We'll have to see. I don't think the asking price would be too high for him, and I'm not sure which teams are going to be super interested in him. He might be another good fit for the Red Sox like we talked about. maybe a depth piece for the Mets. I'm not 100% sure, but I do think he'd be a good fit for the Seattle Mariners. Next up, we got Michael Fulmer of the Detroit Tigers. The Tigers have basically said that they're done trying to compete. They are going to sell off everybody they can. They've mentioned Tariq Skubal in some trade rumors as well. I don't think he's going to get moved, but Michael Fulmer I do think will get moved, as well as Andrew Chafin. I think Michael Fulmer is going to end up on the Philadelphia Phillies. Now, the Phillies' big problem, obviously, is their bullpen. Their lineup's pretty damn solid. Hopefully they get Bryce Harper back so they can make a postseason push. But I think Michael Fulmer could really shore up the middle or back end of that bullpen. He's not really an elite relief pitcher, but he is pretty solid. He was obviously a Rookie of the Year a couple of years ago, so I think Michael Fulmer would be a really good fit for the Phillies. Pretty much anybody who can throw innings in relief is a good fit for the Phillies. They need all the bullpen help they can get. So Michael Fulmer, I think, wouldn't be too high of an asking price, and the Phillies could go out and get him. Next up, we've got one of the best relief pitchers in all of baseball this season. That is David Robertson of the Chicago Cubs. Another guy who I 100% think will get moved this trade deadline. So David Robertson, where's he going to go other than the Minnesota Twins? Now, the Twins would be the best fit for him. Obviously, the Twins have a lot of bullpen issues right now. So David Robertson would be the best fit for them in that bullpen situation. So I would really like to see him on the Minnesota Twins. There's obviously a lot of other destinations. You know, the Red Sox could use him, I keep bringing up. Even it seemed like the Yankees or the Mets could use him. The Phillies could really use him. There's a lot of teams that could use David Robertson right now, but I'm going to go with the Minnesota Twins. They seem like they want to contend, and they really need some bullpen help. Next up, we've got, in my opinion, the most underrated trade piece on the market. This could literally be a good fit for any team in all of baseball. Brandon Drury. Now, Brandon Drury is just so good this season, and he can play anywhere basically in the infield. He's played some shortstop, he's played some third base, he's played some second base. I'm sure he could play first base if you want him to, maybe even man the outfield for a couple of games, or obviously DH, but his bat has just been electric this year. Now, it could be a factor that he has been playing at Great American Ballpark, who, for my money, is probably in the bottom or top 3 of hitter-friendly ballparks in baseball, but Brandon Drury's been tearing the cover off the ball this season, and my perfect fit for him, surprisingly, would be the Atlanta Braves. Now, we saw the Atlanta Braves last year go out and just get a crazy amount of depth. They traded for Jock Peterson, they traded for Eddie Rosario, they traded back for Adam Duvall. They just went out and got a crazy amount of outfield depth. Now, I feel like they kind of have that outfield depth right now with Acuna. Michael Harris has been fantastic for them this season. Marcell Ozuna, Eddie Rosario is still there. So they have their 4 good outfielders back there, but they need some infield depth, especially with Ozzie Albies being out currently. And I think Brandon Drury would be the perfect depth piece for this Atlanta Braves team. You know, if Austin Riley, God forbid, gets injured, or Matt Olson needs a day off, Dansby Swanson has had some cold stretches, and then obviously they kind of have a hole at second base right now. I think Brandon Drury would be the perfect fit for this team, be a depth piece come postseason time when Ozzie Albies gets back, hopefully. In the meantime, be their starting second baseman, and he'd be a great fit for that lineup. I do think they need another left-handed bat. However, Brandon Drury is just a great depth piece for that lineup. Next up, Garrett Cooper, who made the All-Star team. I don't see him getting moved at all. There are some teams that might be willing to trade for him, but I think the asking price would be too high for the production that Garrett Cooper offers. I see him staying with the Marlins long term. And then just below him, we got David Bednar, the last player on this list. Obviously, there's more players who could be traded, but David Bednar, the last one, I think he is also going to the Atlanta Braves. I think he'd be a good fit for that bullpen. The Braves, like I said, they love their depth. They do have a good bullpen right now, but I think David Bednar would make them an elite bullpen. He is another player that I'd probably give him like a 25% chance to be moved. The Pirates have been pretty vocal saying they don't want to trade him, but if a team blows them away with the trade offer, then they definitely could have that happen. But I think David Bednar would be a great piece to make up for guys like Will Smith, who have been a little shaky this year. Even Kenley Jansen's been a little shaky for them. And they just don't really have enough right-handed relief pitching. They have some really good lefties out of that bullpen, but David Bednar, I think, would be a fantastic addition to that bullpen for them. Okay, so that is going to do it for this list. Let me know if there's any big players that I missed. I know there's some other players that we didn't really talk about. Obviously, Shohei Ohtani, I don't think is going to be moved. I'll have a full separate video about why I think the Angels should trade Shohei Ohtani in a little bit. But let me know in the comments if you think I missed, if I was way off on anybody, if you think some of these players should go to your team. Let me know down in the comments. Let's talk some baseball. Let's talk some trade rumors. Don't forget to leave a like on the video if you enjoyed, and Sign up at Thrive Fantasy to get some free money to bet with. Details are in the description. Subscribe for daily MLB content, and I will see you guys in the next one. I hope you have a great rest of your day.